Amir Bagdachi, everyone. Let's hear that for Amir. There's an attitude for you. Wow. It makes us proud, right? But, you know, I have to tell you, I need to get this to the right height. You have to admit, though, I mean, just looking at Amir, he does, you know, he does look a little menacing, right? You can get it, right? He just got trouble written all over him. I did try to console Amir with the fact that it is not only those people of Middle Eastern descent who get interrogated in customs. In fact, I can guarantee you that if you stand in an Italian customs line playing, say, a beat-up guitar with a hole in the back, you will get pulled into a screening room. Just hypothetically speaking, you will get pulled into a screening room. So I do want to introduce our next storyteller. He's a scientist and a seeker and a friend of mine. When asked, Chris Roussi describes himself as curious in all forms of the word. I also happen to know that Chris is a glass artist, and he is so eccentric. He does things like debut the interactive science art project that he's created at Burning Man. He just came back from Burning Man and did this. Interactive. It was amazing. So Chris's favorite moment of travel? Returning to an orphanage in Tibet after a 2-year hiatus, and finding that the children not only remember me, but at least one had practiced the juggling we taught and had become an expert. Please let's welcome to the stage Chris Roussi.
Thanks. So in 2006, I was working on a project funded by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, also known as DARPA. Now, DARPA won't fund a hard project. That would be too easy. They only fund projects that are called DARPA hard, which you should read that as insanely hard or magically difficult. So our project was to read the brainwaves of a fighter pilot, process the data to decide if the pilot was looking at something blurry, and then use that in a feedback loop to correct whatever it was he was looking at. Now, this ultimately led me to Bellevue Mental Hospital in New York City to have my head examined. Well, no, really, that's because they're the only place that had the instrument sensitive enough to measure the brainwave data that we needed. Now, I fancy myself to be a rational person. I'm a big fan of logical, clear, concise explanations. I don't believe in leprechauns or the supernatural. And after 3 months of working with this very strange project manager at Bellevue, I was having some trouble telling the difference between the science and the magic. I needed a vacation. Now, as a very sound, rational thinker, we choose our vacation locations very scientifically. We have requirements that have to be satisfied. One, I hate crowds. Well, not you in particular, but you know, crowds in general. And two, we have to go someplace that pushes our boundaries, that's out of the normal tourist sort of destination. So that led us to Peguche, Ecuador, to a little hotel built in the side of the Andes in the style of the Incas and run by a man named Marcos Lema. Now, Marcos was this ruggedly handsome indigenous man, long black hair in a ponytail, and spoke, but he was well educated in the United States, spoke 4 languages at least fluently, and he was a good host. So one morning I wake up in the hotel with the worst cold I have ever had. Stuffed up head, fever, runny nose, the works. And Marcos was concerned at breakfast that morning. He said, "You didn't walk behind the hotel up the hill to Agato yesterday, did you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, I know what's wrong with you." And I said, "Besides my stubbed up nose?" And he says, "Oh no, those are just the symptoms. What you have is mal aire." So he tells me that mal aire is the spirit of a person that's died violently, that's roaming the earth, causing disease. And he says, "You are possessed by an evil spirit, but you're in luck. Before I started this hotel, I was a shaman. Would you like me to cure you?" Okay, so here I am, a scientist, an engineer, a rational thinker, and here's somebody spouting the worst kind of superstitious claptrap. I look him in the eye and I say, "Okay." I mean, think about it. I was on this trip to get away from the science, and this was heading in that direction. And we go to these places to do things that the locals do, and he was pretty local. And I was really sick, and I needed some kind of help. So he takes me outside, and he gets the instruments together for his procedure. Kind of a stone altar about this big, an embroidered cloth, a glass of water, an egg, some wood from a bark from a tree called the spirit wood. And he says, "I need one more thing. Do you have anything on your person that you wouldn't mind losing?" And so I check my pockets, and all I have is a dime. He goes, "Oh, a dime, that's perfect. Put it in the glass of water." Then he covers my head with the cloth, and he says, "That's so the spirit can't see what I'm doing." That's a good explanation. And then he says, he lights the spirit wood, which smells a lot like incense, and he says, "Now calm yourself, meditate. This will lull the spirit into not noticing what is about to happen." Well, okay, so here I am in the Andes Mountains, far from anywhere, with a guy calling himself a shaman. I've got a tablecloth on my head. Visions of bloody hearts with Inca altars are running through my head. The meditation was not going well. Then he starts to chant in Quechua, which is a very ancient human language. It's soothing, it's hypnotic. And he puts the egg on my head. And he continues to chant. When he stops, he takes the tablecloth off, and now the egg is in the glass with the dime in the water. And I said, "So what just happened here?" And he says, "Well, I coaxed the demon into the egg, but it still thinks it's in your head because it's in something round filled with goo. And it's touching the dime, which was recently in your possession, so it still thinks it's with you. And it's under the water, which is shielding it from sensing the environment." Now, this is strangely compelling. It's a very reasonable explanation in sort of a strange, irrational way. I mean, if you believe in disembodied spirits and that they can be manipulated and can inhabit an egg, and that contact with objects imbues them with your personal aura, well, this is a perfectly self-consistent worldview. But it's not really my worldview. So I say to him, are we done here? And he says, "Well, no. You have to keep this with you, sleep near it, and tomorrow morning, take it out in the woods and throw it as far as you can. The demon will be released but will not return." And then he did what shaman everywhere, I think, are taught to do. He referred me to a specialist. Because although I was no longer possessed, I had a heck of a cold. And it turns out in the next village over was a shaman who was an herbal specialist. So we go there, he examines me, and he gets an armload of weeds, and he tells me how to make tea. So we go back to the hotel, big production, pot of tea, render it down to a cup, which I drink and go to bed. Well, you know, I'm a big believer in better living through chemistry. And a lot of modern drugs are derived from plants. So I'm thinking, how bad can some herbal tea be? Yeah, wrong. I wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, heart rate 190 plus, and I'm thinking, poisoned? Now, panic might have been a good reaction at this point, but most of you don't know me very well, and my fully panicked state and my fully calm ground state are really close together. But I was worried. And then I started to cough. And I hacked up, well, let's just say it was a very productive cough. And in between hacking fits, I had an opportunity to reflect on just how wise it had been to drink this witch's brew that someone gave me in the middle of the Andes Mountain when the only help was the shaman that got me into this pickle. So I get to sleep. I wake up exhausted. I stumble out of bed, and I wing that glass into the woods as far as I can. I take a deep breath. And I just took a deep breath. I'm cured. I'm better. And not a little disturbed. What the hell just happened? I mean, something happened. Was it physical or metaphysical? Was it the exorcism? Was it the herbal, natural, industrial strength expectorant from hell? Was it the placebo effect? I don't know. I've thought about it since then, and I told a friend of mine in Kalamazoo this story. He was raised by a shaman, and he said, "Oh, no, that's all wrong. Usually they put it under your armpit." But aside from that, he didn't see anything funny about this story. But, I did. But there were some side effects from this story. One was that my DARPA project, which had been looking magical, was now nowhere near that. And I might be more inclined to listen to a shaman when he says he's got some help for me. There's a science fiction author, Arthur Clarke, who came up with some laws. His third law says that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But if he had lived in the Andes, a descendant of Incas like Marcos, he might have had a different saying. He might have said, any sufficiently advanced magic is indistinguishable from technology. Thank you.